The people that aren't chasing popularity, recognition, achievement, all those things, and just trying to be decent to others, be a good human, that tends to be the people that others are attracted to more than the people that are actually chasing those things, right?
We realize what we really are is we're a training organization, and leaders model their business as a training organization. We teach sales reps how to sell. We teach call center people how to answer the phone. We teach the homeowner why they should choose us instead of anybody else. We're a training organization. My epiphany was that the business can't reach its potential unless and until the people inside the business first reach theirs.
I think so many leaders are focused on those numbers. How many of this did you do? How many of the KPIs, and did you sell enough, and all the things, right, that we've applied numbers to.
That's right.
They don't realize that what those numbers actually mean to that person is that they're achieving potential, they're getting, I always think of it as three things, these three things that they're out. The things they want, the experiences they would like to have, and the way they'd like to feel mentally, physically, and spiritually.
I think being a decent human is also about being a decent leader. And you can take a lot of those principles, what we learned in kindergarten probably applies a lot to life, right?
Hey everybody, it is Jim Johnson, your host here with Prosperous Human, where we try to help people live a good life. A life well lived, a life that feels like it was worth living, and not so tied up maybe in all the things that we gain and achieve or something that we might be looking to live at some point in the future, but the fact that you can live it right now. We focus on that with 7 elements of living a prosperous life. And one of those elements is impact, this effect that we have on other people, the ability to pour into them and see them reach their potential through either small groups or larger groups, maybe a nation or a world. And if we do that, we get this idea of fulfillment, like we gave something without looking for anything in return. And by seeing others do well, we get a feeling inside of us of fulfillment. And I'm super excited because today I'm going to be talking with one of those people that has done this and done this to a great degree. I've watched him from afar for a long time. I've gone back and forth with him several times to get him on my podcast because I have a lot of respect for him. It's one of those things that you wish that you could be in more relationship with people sometimes, especially those people that you aspire to be like as much as possible. And from everything I've seen, I want to learn from this guy today. I want you guys to learn from this guy today. I'm super excited to bring on our guy, Brian Gottlieb. Brian, welcome aboard. New book out. Sold a huge company. Like, man, so much big things going on in your life. Thank you for being on our show today.
Yeah, Jim, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it. I appreciate all you do for the industry. You make such a difference in so many people's lives, and that's so admirable. And it's such a great industry, and it's so cool that people like you continue to give back. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been really fun. Those of you that are watching this podcast, I have been in this exteriors renovations world for really insistently since 1998, so about 27 years or so, and even longer than that as a carpenter, a concrete foundation guy. Like, I've been around that my whole entire life, and up until recently, I've been coaching and all that good stuff. I still do some coaching in that industry, but now I'm coaching more businesses in general and helping people try to see what living a good life might be like, and that's what this whole prosperous human thing is about. And so, Brian, you created a company on a plastic table with $3,000 and a napkin. You hear those stories all the time, like the idea on a napkin type thing. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And because the idea must have been a little bit different. I mean, you built quite a company. What was that first iteration of things all about? What inspired it?
Yeah, I kind of have to take you back a few years before I started the business because when I was working in the home improvement industry and selling at the kitchen table, and I loved sales. And then I got to be a sales manager, and I loved the impact I can make on other salespeople. And I decided, you know what I want to do is I want to start my own consulting business. So I started a consulting business, and
bad idea.
I got a chance to visit companies across the country. And what I did in my early days as a consultant, first of all, because I never went to college, I made sure I read a business book a week. That was my goal. So I read a business book a week, but I also kept a journal when I visited all these companies and had two lists going on. If I ever start a business, I'm absolutely going to do this. And if I ever start a business, I'm never doing this. So I got to see a lot of different things out there. And when 2008 and 2009 came around, we know the disruption that it had in the home improvement and the remodeling industry. And I was kind of getting burnt out living on the road, just living in hotel rooms. So I wanted to start a business in my hometown in Appleton, Wisconsin. And yeah, it wasn't like I had a lot of money. So it was $3,000 in a plastic folding table. And my buddy had a warehouse that I could set up in. And it was actually in the foundation repair business. So it was about the dirtiest office you could ever imagine. The layers of dust every single day. It was a wild time. But yeah, but things worked out pretty good. So I wanted to create a different type of business. I wanted to build more than just a home improvement company. I wanted to create a brand that was truly woven into the fabric of the communities that we served. Because I felt if we could do something like that, there's so many great people out there that I think often feel underappreciated where they're working or frustrated or not. It's a job to them. And if I can create an environment where people really feel good about what they do and there's an impact to it, when we think about your 7 elements, they're amazing. The last one being impact. I think about, we can chase the dollar, but there's also another type of currency, and it's the currency of purpose. Mm-hmm. And I think when we can really chase that, I think great things really happen.
I hope you're right. No, I know you're right. I've been able to go down that path a few times in my life, whether it be, having my own contracting business and doing pretty well with that. Funny story, you may not know this. I actually had a location in Appleton, Wisconsin from the year 2000 through about 2004. Sold that off to another person. Don't even know if it's still going or not going anymore. And he just wanted, it was like we were getting market share and he didn't want me to have market share. And that whole Fox Valley thing, like I know that area quite well. Yeah. And so it's really cool to see some of that back home. I know why the company was named Tundra Land. If you're from Wisconsin, frozen tundra, really cool aspect of things. And so I've gotten to chase my purpose quite a few times.
Yeah.
And the software thing with AccuLinks and getting that off the ground, then this coaching thing, because I really felt some purpose that there was a lot of people in our industry that were really good at installing and doing the work, or really good at sales and that side of things, but they didn't have the business, financial, and leadership acumen that they could have had if they just went and looked for a little bit. And so I wanted to help. And it's been my purpose this whole entire time, because I've always felt this industry was a little bit nefarious, underneath. It could be kind of seedy. I think a lot of homeowners have dealt with that over time. And I wanted to bring ethics and morals into this industry as much as possible, because you actually can do it right and do really, really well. Right. And it's funny, the ones that do they really well, that 1% of companies that achieve 50 million, they sustain for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Those are the ones that must be doing something right. And they're probably after something more than just that dollar. There's a reason. And you said something interesting to me, and I want to maybe understand a little bit more what you meant there, that you wanted to build something that was woven into the community. And you talked a little bit about the people that worked for you and how you affected them within the community. But how about the people that you work for, or the community in general? What did you do to weave into that before we get into your 5 pillars of leadership and some of those?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And by the way, just to kind of back up on what you were chatting about earlier, if you think about a lot of companies where they're at today, a lot of businesses in the in the blue collar industry aren't started with the concept of I'm going to build a business. They're often started by I happen to have a skill set and I'm going to start doing that on my own. And then over time it starts to become a job. And then over time it starts to you realize, oh, I got a business here, and I never went to school for business or anything like that. I don't really know how to build a business. So there's so many gaps inside of an organization. And that's where I think people like you really fill a void to help them realize, to help them with their blind spots, really. I remember when I started my business, I'm looking at a P&L, and I'm like, I don't even know how to freaking read a P&L, and now I have to try to understand what all this means. So, but we learn over time. But going back to your question, our mission statement in our businesses, and it was 3 different organizations, just so we're on the same page. It started as Tundraland, and over time, I added more and more people to the business, and then started opening up other locations. One was a company called Jacuzzi Bath Remodel of Arizona, and then I opened up a couple of Renewal by Andersen window locations. So all in all, I had about 600 employees, and we were doing about $150 million when I exited the business. But the impact, our mission statement in all of our organizations, very simply put, was to do well and do good. And that was why we existed. And we would define that as, what is the purpose of business? Why do we exist? Why are we doing this? And we define do well and do good to mean to make a decent profit decently. And what does it mean to be decent? And how do we have how do we treat our customers decently? How do we treat our community decently? And what is each and everybody's role in doing that? How do we get everybody in the organization to participate in that, right? Because that's what really brings a mission to life. And that's what, in my opinion, makes a huge impact. So we would do cool things like, as an example, when in our bath business, we did a lot of our shower business, bath and shower remodeling business. When I sold the businesses, we were doing about 500 bath remodeling projects a month. So you can imagine it's a lot of volume of projects. When we would set up at shows and fairs and festivals, we wouldn't just simply set up a shower display. We would set up a shower display and we would put music instruments and microphones and speakers in it. And we would invite people to come on by and sing in our shower. And once we got a certain amount of people singing in our shower, we'd send a kid to music school for a year. And that was just like kind of one way where we could make a positive impact. How do we fit our product and make our customers, our community co-producers in our success? That they were rooting for us. And I think that's so important in business. How do you get your customer to root for you? It's really a cool idea.
That's taking one of those things we probably all do. We're probably all aware of, singing in the shower, right? Even if it's the one place you can sing, even if you have a terrible voice, you can go for it. And taking that common thing and making it uncommon, putting it into the world out there to help kids find and chase their musical passion. I love that creative stuff. That's the stuff that gets the juices flowing, not only of the people in your community, but of the people at where you work.
Yeah.
I want to dig into that word that you used. That word to me has a lot of meaning. To make a decent profit, and to be decent, right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's right. Make a decent profit decently. Yep.
Yeah, make a decent profit. I find that a lot of times when I hear things like that from somebody that was building something that might have been a guiding principle of theirs, that's different from a core value, where core value is kind of like, hey, I believe in having integrity, or being honest and doing those type of things. It's kind of how you act it out is this guiding principle. Did that come from you and your partner, the people, or was it just something that you're hardwired for?
It started, it evolved. How about that? It evolved. I remember that. And sometimes you stumble into things that make you feel good and you don't even realize it would make you feel good. I'll give you an example. I heard about this guy that did 2 tours in Iraq and came home from Iraq and was diagnosed with MS. And like that, bam, he was in a wheelchair. And, we heard about his story, and we never did anything like this before. We heard about his story, and we thought, this is like somebody in our community, and how can we do something really cool for this person? So we actually worked with his mom, and we had him enter a fake sweepstakes. We had a sweepstakes, right, for a hockey game. And surprise, he won because he was the only entry, but he didn't know that. So he thought he won, and he left his home in the day of the event that he won. It was a tour of Lambeau Field, a private tour of Lambeau Field. And then it was the evening at a hockey game where a bunch of his friends were at the hockey game waiting for him, right? So we wheel him out on the ice to thank him for his service. And he doesn't know who I am, and I point to the Jumbotron while he's out on the ice, and the whole place is full of people. And we show him the Jumbotron, him leaving his home, and then our guys arriving at his home, sneaking into his house, totally crashing his bathroom and making it handicap accessible.
Man, that's awesome.
That moment put us on a path. That moment was transformational. What it did for Mike Allstein, who is the veteran, was great. What it did for our culture, what it did for how we felt about what we do. Look, what's interesting? Every company wants relationships. They want relational sales to happen. They want to create relationships with the customers. And yet, what happens is in meetings inside of an organization, the things that are talked about are closing average and lead cost and material costs and labor costs and all these transactional things, and not the relational things. And how do we bring the relational side of what we do to the surface? So because when people connect with a bigger purpose, they tend to do everything a whole lot better. And that's good for the customer, and it's good for the financial state of an organization.
So good. Like, that story actually tugs at me a little bit because one of the things people might not know about me a whole lot is my mom has MS. It actually was something that changed the trajectory of my life, where I chose to go to school so I could stay closer to home, be there a little bit more for her. She's still alive, dealing with it. It's a really slow, progressive part. So first off, just thank you. Thank you for doing that. I don't know where the idea came from. It was probably random. Probably somebody saw it, you saw it, and went, I just want to do a good thing. And from that good thing, you went, wow, that felt pretty good. I want to do more of that. Is that fair?
That's exactly right. And then again, and if you think about what that became, we see the ripple effect of Mike Allstein and potentially like his legacy is that it was such a great feeling. I thought, how do we do this intentionally? So I actually created a program called Baths for the Brave. And what Baths for the Brave is it's a opportunity to surprise a veteran on Veterans Day with a free shower system. Because a lot of veterans that have served our country proudly, they have a bathtub that's difficult to step over. They have mobility issues. They have financial challenges. And they have to live in a home that they're scared to take a shower in their own home. And we just thought that was unacceptable. So let's create a program where once a year we surprise veterans with free showers. That program took off to the point that it's still going on, even though I sold the businesses. I still run Baths for the Brave. This past November, we were in 30 states with it. 30 states, veterans were receiving free showers all at the same time, not by me, but by other like-minded home improvement companies that believe in this mission. And so it's just become this whole ripple effect. We've installed over $3 million in free bath projects for veterans. Never raised a penny for it. There isn't a penny that's raised. These are other home improvement companies that say, yeah, I want to donate my time. I'll donate the materials. We have the crews. Let's do this together. And it's just been, again, it's just such I think you can create these things that people really believe in and get everybody in the organization to participate in it, because that's what gives it meaning. Look, sure, you could write a check to some nonprofit and it goes in a river and you never see the result of it. But I believe when you can make a positive impact in the life of just one individual in your community, that's how we take part in changing the world. And that's something we can all do.
What I hope everybody hears in this, because you're not the first person to ever do anything like this, right? Like, there's lots of programs that help people all over the place, but so many of them strike me as for an ulterior motive. Like, hey, I'm going to get some good marketing out of this. It's going to get me some publicity. It's going to be this thing that helps to build my business, where yours was organic. It was done, I feel, for the right reasons. And you can hear it in your voice, like in how you're sharing it. At no point have you ever said anything about the business that it led to for you. It was all about how it made you feel, how it made others feel, the impact in the community. And there is a right way and a wrong way about going about these things. Did you notice that, like, as you were doing this, like, hey, the dollar part of it isn't the important part?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Jim. I think it's not talked about enough. I remember that. I remember I was at a conference. I was at one of the manufacturers' conferences, and I was just speaking about the Bass for the Brave program and doing a free project for somebody. And a lot of people looked at me like I was crazy. Like, well, how do you pay for that? Is that a marketing cost? How many leads did you get from it? And all these conversations.
Where do you allocate that in your budget?
Exactly. And it was, no, it's none of that. It's not that at all. Now, in all fairness, we weren't afraid to talk about it to others, or if the media interviewed on us, we got a ton of free press out of it. But the motivation was, how do we change the conversation of how we can all make a difference in our communities as a business? And it does actually, to me, it makes every other marketing source work better, because when you can have conversations and when people see the human side of your business, they tend to want to do business with you. But it wasn't how do we grow our business? It's how do we make a difference? And as a result, we're growing our business. So it's just getting the priorities right.
And you can just feel the ones that are different. The ones that tend to have staying power and there's passion behind, the people get involved with it, your workers, other companies.
Correct.
Like, that's the type of thing where the purpose outweighed maybe the outcome, the result, or whatever benefit. The benefit was more organic and just happened because of doing the right thing by another human being. That, to me, is real impact. And I like the fact that you use that word impact. This is one of those ones that always kind of struggle with a little bit, because I see so much around legacy, right? I want to leave my legacy, this legacy I want to leave behind, that type of thing. It tends to seem very egocentric, because the reality is, couple hundred years after we pass, probably nobody's ever going to remember our name. Yeah. But that thing you did for somebody, that it's something they'll never forget, and they share the story all the time. The people that work for you share that story all the time. That makes this byproduct impact that people go, hey, I can do right by somebody. I can be decent. Have you seen that nuance or difference between legacy and impact, or do those two really matter to you much?
Well, I have a real opinion on that, and I believe that I don't focus on legacy whatsoever. What I focus on today. I focus on being present, right? I focus on, if I'm having a conversation with Jim, I'm not on my phone while I'm doing it. I focus on having a conversation with my wife, my phone is shut off. I focus on being present. I focus on saying, how can I, what is my responsibility today? How can I do good today? How can I make an impact today? Legacy will take care of itself. So that's just kind of my opinion on it.
I kind of have these three I's: intentional impact with individuals. Like, each conversation, I've been pumped about this conversation for a long time. I'm like, nobody does this without being special. And I like to talk to special people. I learn from them each and every time. It's why I do this podcast in the first place. It's a little bit selfish on my part. I want to learn something from somebody that I may not already know. It's such a great approach, because your impact's going to come from that.
Yeah, look, there are lots of different types of disciplines, right? There's a discipline of, I take ice baths every single morning. I've never taken an ice bath in my life.
I did this morning.
I ever, probably, unless it's accidental, if I fall in an ice bath, but I'm not going to step into one intentionally. So there are a lot of disciplines, right? Disciplines of going to the gym, but there's also the discipline of being present. The discipline of my phone is over here, and I'm going to have the discipline of not looking at it while I'm talking to you. I'm going to have the discipline of being present when I'm doing a one-on-one with somebody. I'm going to have the discipline of making people feel like they're the only person that matters in this moment that we're together. To me, that's as an important, and by the way, it's a very difficult discipline, and I'm not perfect at it, but I try to work on it every single day. But what I think that does is I think it allows for us to connect in a new way with people. I think that then turns into really cool things, right? And especially as a business leader, and I want to share with you another story, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're here for.
Singing in the shower. Jim, I had an epiphany. I literally had an epiphany. And the epiphany I had was probably the single biggest change that took place in me and the way I ran my business. What happened was, it was right after one of these weekends where we just awarded a kid a music scholarship because everybody was singing in the shower and the community was involved in it. It was really cool. And my wife and I were sitting on the front porch in our home in Appleton, Wisconsin on a Sunday because we had just chosen the kid. And I realized that, when the business is not in a good place, clearly as the business leader, I'm not in a good place. None of us are, right? But when the business is in a great place, I'm in a great place. I'm very much connected. My emotions, the way I feel, the way I sleep is very much connected to how the business is doing, right or wrong. And my epiphany was that the business can't reach its potential unless and until the people inside the business first reach theirs. In other words, the lid of the business was directly connected to the lid of the people. So my epiphany was, I now know my role. That my role is, how do I help others not just realize their potential, but truly reach it? That's my role as the leader of an organization. And everything else I do is a distraction. That is my focus. How do I get if I'm checking emails at work, I'm not helping somebody realize their potential. If I'm not in the office, I'm not helping somebody reach their potential. And it just gave me absolute clarity on what is my role as a leader. And, again, it's evolution, right? It's evolution, but it's kind of cool.
It's such a great story because I can remember that day for me as well. Like it was, hey, I get what I'm supposed to do now. I'm supposed to help all these people achieve their goals, their potential. And if they do, a byproduct is our company will likely be pretty successful. It's also a reflection of me as a leader. And so we actually teach that now. We went to our clients, we walk them through those things in our coaching of what that looks like, how to do it. Because I think so many leaders are focused on those numbers. How many of this did you do? How many of the KPIs, and did you sell enough, and all the things, right, that we've applied numbers to. Right. They don't realize that what those numbers actually mean to that person is that they're achieving potential, they're getting, and I always think of it as three things, these three things that they're out. The things they want, the experiences they would like to have, and the way they'd like to feel mentally, physically, and spiritually. And if I can help them get those things and focus there, I'll never forget, I'm sorry to butt in on your story here. I'll never forget when it clicked to me of hey, people want stuff that's different from the stuff I want. And so what stuff do they want? And then how do I keep it in front of them? So I would ask everybody hey, what's the thing? You want to buy a house? You want to get a car? Do you want to put your kids through college? What's the thing? And we would figure out what the thing was. And then everything I ever talked to them about from that point forward till they got it was about that thing. Did you do enough work to get to this thing? Do you feel like you put in enough effort in your learning to get to this thing? Have you improved your performance? And I would put pictures of those things in front of them. I would put different locations if they were trying to buy houses, what college, if you're trying to put a kid through school. I wanted to make it real and palpable so that it wasn't just a foggy notion, but literally something tangible that was in front of your face. And if you just reach for it, you get it. That
matters to them, right? Yeah. I mean, look, we have this saying in our business that the lead is sacred, which is one of the disciplines inside of our organization. Businesses have a lot of disciplines. And if you think about, we all want to document our processes, right? We know we need to do that, but it has to start with what is the business discipline? And then what is the process you need to ensure that that discipline is being met, right? And then what are the people that you need in order to run that process? So one of the disciplines was the idea that the lead is sacred, that every lead is sacred. Which is the discipline in the business. But the way we connected it to the process was that because every lead that doesn't get handled is a potential veteran that we're not able to help with Bass for the Brave.
So good.
And if you can kind of connect your disciplines and your process to something greater than just the data, again, it's very meaningful and it rallies people around it in a much bigger fashion.
That's so great. So, you do all these amazing things. You change all these lives. You build an amazing business that somebody must have wanted because they purchased it from you.
Yeah.
And all that happens. And then what made you want to write a book about all that?
Yeah. Well, and it was 3 different businesses to 3 different buyers, by the way.
I keep forgetting. Keep reminding me for sure.
Yeah, no, it's great. Jacuzzi wanted to have their own company stores across the country. And they looked at our business in Arizona and they said, this is a platform that we can scale upon because we had the systems and processes in place. So they acquired it in order to replicate it across the country. Leaf Home Enhancements acquired Tundraland. They thought we had the best end-to-end process as an organization that they've ever seen. So they wanted to replicate that. And I sold my Renewal by Anderson businesses to my executive leadership team to give them a chance to have generational wealth. So that was what it was about. But look, when that was done, it was like, what's the next challenge? And if I truly believe that I have to give you a quote, and it's the quote is by Mark Twain, and it's the 2 most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day you finally realize why.
That's one of my favorites.
My realization was that I'm here to help others reach that potential. If I'm not operating a business, then how else do I do that? Well, let me create a book that can help the entrepreneur have a better business, have the manager really have a better life, the people on the team have a better work experience, the customer have a better client experience, the community have a better life because of that company. And that's why I wrote the book. And I wanted to make it something that was approachable, that was inspirational, and that was also actionable, by the way, because that's also important. So, the book is called Beyond the Hammer. It's available in print. It's available. It's a great audiobook, too, by the way, if you like audiobooks. It's a fantastic audiobook.
Did you do the audio?
So, I have a story for you. Can I give you another story?
Yeah, I love stories, man. They're great. That's what we're here for.
So when I first started writing the book, it was like this leadership book. And I'm like, this is just another leadership book. And I don't want to. So I wrote it in 2 sections. I wanted something that was really cool. So the first half is a business parable about a contractor that's struggling and he meets a mentor and then the second half is more strategy on how to implement the lessons of the parable into your business. I felt fine reading the strategy side, but coming up with different voices for characters and in a parable, I was like, I'm way over my skis on that one. But I love audiobooks, and my favorite narrator of all time is a guy named Eduardo Ballerini. And he reads books for like James Patterson. He used to be an actor on The Sopranos. So I thought, I'm going to cold call this guy. I'm going to see if he'll read my parable. And sure enough, he did. So he's actually the voice of the parable, and he killed it. He just crushed it. And he did such a great job. So he reads the parable, and I read the second half.
That's great. Because you actually got to a question I was hoping to ask you today. Because writing a strategy or business or process type instructional, businessy type book, not all that challenging. It's what we live and how we live it, and we know it inside and out and backwards and forwards. I got the opportunity to do one myself called Contractor's Blueprint, did pretty well. But when I got done with it, I was like, man, I wish I would have told a story instead of the little small stories in there. I wish I would have just made it a parable. I love that you use that terminology too. Because a parable is a life lesson you learn through somebody else's experiences. And there should be a not only a practical, tactical takeaway from it, but a moralistic take away from it as well.
And one of the most common things I hear from people is, it was exactly what I needed to read right now. It's exactly what I needed to hear right now, because it's a story we can all relate to. We've all dealt with, pissed off customers. We've all dealt with, inconsistent results in our business. We've all dealt with high turnover at times. We've all dealt with those frustrating things. And so if we can speak to that and then show how to overcome that through the pillars of leadership, everything else starts to fall into place.
That's so good. Well, I share that because I am writing this whole Prosperous Human book. And before ever talking to you or even reading your book, I had decided I was going to do it in the parable style. Og Mandino's the greatest salesperson. John Gordon's the carpenter, and the Energy Bus and books like that. Those are the ones I really enjoy reading. Yeah. And so kudos to you, because it's difficult. It's a lot harder, I think, to write those types of books. Was it for you? Did that get you where you were in an uncomfortable, challenging situation? The challenging part of writing a parable is it's easy to write yourself into a corner. Okay, now where do I go with this thing? Because in a parable, you need characters. And then the characters have to have character arcs where they start this way and they end up that way. And if there isn't friction all the time, the parable is a boring parable. So I actually listened to I did a couple of master classes with Lee Child and with Malcolm Gladwell, so I can understand how are they thinking about it. And one of the cool things that I learned is that every character has a secret. Every character has a secret. And, what is their secret? And so that kind of helped shape the parable. Also, I had to realize that, because the first two drafts of the parable went in the trash can, right? That too much character development. The character is a vehicle to help deliver the lesson of the parable. It's not. This isn't a novel about the character, but people should get attached to it, but not so attached that you lose focus on the story itself. Yeah, I never really noticed that before, but even when you hear the word parable, you think the Bible, and I think one of the most common ones that you hear is the Good Samaritan. There's no backstory to any of the folks that are there. It's their story is wrapped up in what it is they did.
Yeah, exactly.
And the process they went through.
Yeah, but good luck with it. It's a journey. It's writing it. By the way, the hardest part isn't when the characters are talking to each other. It's what they're doing in between. He stops, takes a sip of water, and continues. It's that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that's like, yeah.
Yeah, I found that when reading some of those books. Malcolm Gladwell's another one that writes in that fashion. And it's the direct one-to-one conversation between the sage and the mentee person, the person learning something. That's pretty easy. It's the part of how they process it and take it and then apply it, outside of that conversation, I think is the challenging part of how do I put that together? So kudos to you. Well done. It's been well received. I mean, I see pictures of it in airports, bestseller lists. Like, man, congratulations. Somebody from the exteriors, home renovations world, writing a real book, something to be proud of. Well done.
It's taken off well beyond my expectations. So Hudson Books picked it up in 71 airports across the country, and it's on their center new release table. Barnes & Noble picked it up. So it just continues to build momentum, and it's just really been, and companies are not buying one, they're buying a bunch for their team to read. And that's what's really cool. They're doing book clubs on it. It's been very well received, and I'm very grateful, very humbled by it.
Well done, brother. So there's this story of the guy struggling and the guy that helps him get out of struggling. But it comes down to these 5 pillars. And so first off, I'd like you to talk a little bit about those 5 pillars, but ultimately the impact that you hope that has on the people that read it.
Yeah, again, I think that leaders, managers, founders, right? I think the impact they can have on their team is profound. And when done properly, you can be truly transformational for somebody in their life. And I think what happens at work doesn't stay at work. It comes home with us whether we want it to or not. The person that's frustrated at work is frustrated at home. They bring it home with them. So if we can change all that, then I think we actually create a better home life too. And I think the principles of business can be applied to our personal life as well. If I live my life doing well and doing good, that's a good life. If I lead my business that way, that's a good business. So I don't think it's necessarily a separation. I think it's about harmony. So yeah, the first pillar is the idea that belief is transferable. And where that came from is it goes back into that epiphany thing, that the idea that that the lid of the business is connected to the lid of the people. If I want to raise people's lid, we have to understand that some people are doing things they've never done before, and they're full of FUD, which stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. They don't believe they can do it, and we have to let them know that they can. And that's where belief is transferable comes from. That we have to not only tell them why we believe in them, but then also add substance to it. Jim, I believe in you because I've seen you do X, Y, and Z before, and that's why I know you can accomplish this. And the more we can get people to believe in themselves, what happens is their lid starts to raise because they thought they could do this. Now they realize maybe they do this. And when they can accomplish that, oh, maybe I can do this. So belief is transferable really fuels our personal growth. Negative belief pushes it down. If we don't think we can do something, I can never do that. I can never be good at that. So both are transferable. We get to choose what we want to transfer as leaders.
Wow, I love everything about that because I grew up in this environment where I felt, maybe it wasn't completely true, but I felt very much like nobody believed in me, told on a constant basis, I'm a moron, I'm stupid, I'll be in jail by the time I'm 18. Yeah. It was just not a very good environment. And I really fought against that. And I'm thankful to God for just giving me that fire inside of me to go, that's not going to be who I am. And then to be interacting with other people as a leader myself, I believe strongly in that, hey, I think they have a lot of blind spots out there. I think they may have been told that they weren't going to be able to do whatever. But whenever you open their mind up to these areas that they might be good at that they don't even realize, they're a blind spot for them. Like, man, you are really good at this Excel spreadsheet stuff. Would you like to go and create this one over here and do that?
Right.
Because I know you can. I've seen you do this. That's that little piece of positive reinforcement that you believe they can do something that they might not believe they can do themselves. Oh my goodness! You can just. I love that you're using that term, "raise the lid." That's a good one. Solid leadership stuff.
Right. What do we do as leaders? Right. We are responsible for creating an environment where success can take place. Right. Mm-hmm. How do we create an environment where success can actually grow and expand? And sometimes while belief is transferable is really important. The other thing is that, and Jim, have you ever worked for somebody? Have you ever worked for somebody that would be really stressed out, and you would just feel their energy, and it would right? We've all worked for that kind of person, or they get angry, and you're like keeping your head below the desk because you don't want it to get shot off, right? Don't look at me, right? And one of the other principles of the book, one of the other pillars, is the idea that leaders are aware of the echo of their voice. And what happens in business is your team. If you're a leader watching this, you're a manager watching this. I promise you that your team will determine what kind of day they're going to have based on the type of day that you're having. If you're going to have a stressful day, they're going to be stressful because of it. It's going to stress them out too. If you're going to be negative, or if you're going to be angry, they're going to be shy and keeping away from you because and they're certainly not going to bring problems to you because they don't want to make things worse. So, the team determines what type of day they're having based on the type of day the leader is having. And with that in mind, it's my opinion that, look, in front of your team, leaders don't get to have bad days. If somebody's having a bad day, I'll give you my cell phone number. Pick up the phone. I'll talk to you all day long about it. Talk to me. Don't dump on your team about it, because you have to be strong for your team because it matters. So leaders are aware of the echo of their voice. It's a really important pillar.
I think that's actually transferable to the home. I think fathers should be aware of the echo of their voice. I like this business and personal thing that we tend to, especially in Western society, American culture, separate those two things. Like, hey, I got work over here and I got family over there and I got my spiritual life over there. They're really all very intertwined. That's an awesome pillar. Share some of the others.
Yeah, by the way, both of those principles we talked about, belief is transferable, aware of the echo of our voice, are both applicable at home as well, right? I mean, they both are. How do you get your kids to believe that they can accomplish more? So, again, I think being a decent human, being a decent dad, or a decent mom is also about being a decent leader. And you can take a lot of those principles. What we learned in kindergarten probably applies a lot to life, right? So another pillar is the idea that I have to share a story with you. When I started my business in 2009, if you'd have asked me what kind of business we were, I would have said, well, we're a construction company. If you'd have asked me when I had like 15 sales reps, and I thought I was hot poo-poo, right? I thought, I got 15 sales reps. I would say, well, we're a sales and marketing company that happens to be in home improvements. But when we had 100 sales reps and more than 100 sales reps, what really got us to that level was we realized what we really are is we're a training organization. And leaders model their business as a training organization. We teach sales reps how to sell. We teach call center people how to answer the phone. We teach the homeowner why they should choose us instead of anybody else. We're a training organization. And when you are a training organization, I think then you're no longer held hostage to the rules of the industry, that I have to hire people with a lot of experience. No, I can teach people because we're a training organization. And as a training organization, we're all students and we're all teachers, and it's available to everyone. And I think that also makes for a better business.
Could not agree more. I think that's one of those simple observation things that I always look at the contracting or home services world, and really any business. Like, this is transferable across. You have the top 1% to 3%, and then you got everybody else. If everybody else would just observe what that top 1% to 3% is doing, they would observe really quickly that training is way up there on the list of things that have made them successful. Probably culture and training and financial acumen, leadership ability, those would be the 4 that I'd go, hey, I need to figure those out.
Well, and a lot of times what happens, look, I get it. Business, things get busy. And, when a problem happens on a job site, let's say, and if it's not dealt with by the installer and it goes up to the manager's desk, by the time it gets to my desk, the homeowner wants a free house out of it. They want a free house, right? You know what I mean? So how do we get it solved as close to the customer as possible? And that takes training and development. I mean, we have to teach and train, and we have to give people permission to be wrong. We have to celebrate decisions, and we have to frown upon indecision. It's indecision that cripples a business. So, how do we create an empowered environment, and what are we teaching them? And I think part of it is if you're thinking about where do you train, where do you start? When we talked a moment ago about documenting processes, look, it doesn't have to be as overwhelming as one might think. If you create a line on your wall in your office, and on one side of the line is when you generate the lead, and the opposite side of the line is when you're done and paid with a project, and you have a line, and you start putting hash marks everywhere that there's somebody on your team that has to interact with the customer, or somebody on your team that has to interact with somebody else on their team, like a job is getting passed from department to department. These are all opportunities for friction. Friction can happen when I'm talking to a customer or when somebody's talking to somebody else. That's where friction comes from. It doesn't typically happen when we're by ourselves. That's where you start your documentation. Start with your friction points. You begin there, and it's not about it being perfect. It could be a couple. If you want to be a training organization, it could be a couple of sentences. You can always build to it, but it's a powerful thing when you get it right.
So I call those inflection points. They're the inflection point where something could go really great or really terrible. I like how you use the word friction. That seems like the whole goal of a business overall, or a interactive sales situation, is to remove the friction, take the stress out of it, makes it easier to make the decisions.
Yeah, and often what happens with a business owner, as you know, we get the problems on our desk, and Business owners are fantastic problem solvers. They are fantastic decision makers. Just the nature of being a business leader or a manager. If you're a business leader or a manager, you are a fantastic decision maker. The downside to that is we tend to solve problems in isolation. We tend to solve a problem when it's on our desk, we solve it. And what we're doing when we do that is we're actually robbing people of a training opportunity. So, and often we're just solving the symptom and not the core problem because we're too busy to really get to the root cause. By enlisting your team into really figuring out what's the root cause of this and how do we get the team to solve the problem, those symptoms will not show up as often. How about that?
That's great. So that's 3 of the pillars, right?
Yeah.
What's
that's
pillar
3
number
of the
4?
pillars. Well, one of the pillars is the idea that leaders shape culture through purpose and direction. And if we think about what is culture, right? If you ask me, what was our single point of differentiation? I would say it was our culture. It's the way people think inside of the business. It's how they think and act inside of the business, because the success of the business isn't determined based on about my results. It's the success of the business is tied into how well our teams perform, both when we're looking and when we're not watching, right? And that's driven by how people think, right? How they think about the business is their mindset, which determines their behaviors. And that's your culture. And you shape that through purpose and direction, through mission and vision. A mission, like we were talking about, do well and do good. And a vision is, what does the organization truly aspire to become? What do you aspire to become 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now? What behaviors do you need out of your team in order to reach your aspirational vision? It should be short, it should be uplifting, and it should be actionable. But what it does is when you have a vision statement, and whether it's an organizational vision statement, and I'm a big believer of every team should have its own vision statement, so that when people join your team, they understand, oh, this is what we aspire to become, and these are the behaviors that we want out of the team members. Now, when I'm having a conversation with an employee, it's not just about KPIs and closing average, it's about behaviors and how well there's alignment to the vision of the organization. Because a team needs to be aligned if you want them to perform at a high level and with any degree of consistency.
I've found that the companies that do the best are the ones with the best cultures. They might not have the best systems. They might not have all the fancy stuff. But their culture, if they got a great culture, they'll eat strategy for lunch all day long.
That's right.
And that's usually driven by the leadership team, ultimately probably some strong leader that feels strongly about that side of the business, but he also lives it. He's not only living it himself and being an example of it, but he's recognizing everybody else for it too.
And protecting it, because culture is also shaped by the lowest level of acceptable behavior. And if you accept that behavior, you actually attract more of it. What we tolerate, we attract. So your culture is shaped by the lowest level of acceptable behavior. So you have to have a plan and a strategy and a way to coach people up or let them be successful somewhere else.
One of the kind of the pinnacle moment where I realized that I actually believed in culture, it wasn't just something I was talking about, fired top sales guy because his behaviors were below the line of what was acceptable.
Yeah.
And when I did it, the reaction from everybody else, there was immediate text like, thank you, like about time. Yeah. But then everybody else's game raised. And we didn't lose anything. We gained something. And it got everybody into this like, oh, this is real. And we started all living it. And it really was just massive change throughout the business.
Yeah, I mean, some will say, well, if you have a top performing sales rep that's not a good culture fit, you want to isolate them, right? I don't believe I can have an aligned team if part of my team is isolated. I need everybody to be on the same page. The other thing is it's the sales rep that's you love them. Oh my gosh, they're the nicest people. They're an absolute culture fit. They are such a culture fit. But from a sales rep standpoint, they can't even close a car door and that's a home improvement project, right? So, but if you tolerate that says a lot about your culture too. So how do you coach those people up? And by the way, when you think about coaching up and that the low performer, high culture fit, you do that with short-term KPIs and performance improvement plans and give them a short-term way to work towards it. You coach up low culture fit through alignment to your mission and vision statement. You can talk about the KPIs, but you really want to talk about behavioral alignment. So it gives you really a recipe on coaching both over.
That, everybody listening, golden nugget, go write that one down. That right there, absolutely killer leadership advice, will make a massive impact on both sides of the equation of your people.
Right.
So that brings us to the last one. What do we got on that one?
Here's the deal, my friend. We put a sales rep through a 2-week training class, right, before they're allowed to talk to a customer. We put marketing people, face-to-face marketers and canvassers through a 1-week class before they can go knock on a door and talk to a customer. But when we need a manager, you got the most experience. Congratulations, you're a manager. And we make them a manager without any formal training whatsoever. And if you think about the manager, they're truly the custodian of the company's culture. That they are. How they hire, how they fire, how they publicly reward, how they talk to their team, how they interact with them, it affects the mindset of the team, which we know affects the organizational performance. Managers need a checklist. They need to understand what are the 10 practices of top performing managers. In this book, you have the 10 practices of high performing managers, and it takes people through not only here are the 10 practices, but how to implement it in your business. Because if you can make managers better, that's when we talk about the lid of the team is held back by the lid of the manager. And so how do we raise the lid of the manager as well? And that's what that's about. And it puts managers on a path to understand, wow, now I understand what I should focus on. And it's really helpful.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you on that training, and you said, hey, we're a training organization. And you mentioned salespeople and call center people and folks like that. But you didn't mention the leaders. And here we go. This is where that's at, right? And I went through a very similar cycle to you, where it's like, hey, we do roofing, and then, we do exteriors, and then, we are a marketing and sales. And then we kind of came to this personal development company. That's what we were. And that's training of all aspects, including leadership. And it was really just what Springboard is. You also said something that was kind of brought up a memory for me. Whenever I first got into the industry, I did really, really well. I had a lot of professional sales training background from a previous experience that I had. And about 4 months into it, they came to me and said, hey, we would like you to be the sales manager. What do you think? And I said, I don't know. What does the compensation look like? And what are the roles and responsibilities? What's the job duties? And it was the funniest reply ever. Well, we just want everybody to do it like you. Teach them to do that. And I'm like, well, that's not really a job description.
Right.
What they didn't know at that point is that I had been a salesperson, a sales manager, a regional manager, a director of sales in the health club world for about 40 locations. And so I had some experience. It kind of lucked into the fact that I had that background experience. But so many of us do exactly what you said. Hey, you have the most experience, you have the best results, go be the leader. And there's no direction, no training, no tools, because it's a very different skill set to be one of those leaders that can truly make an impact. Did you find that hard to teach people or to put into practice for your company?
Well, we had to, from a manager standpoint, we could only promote people that were, first of all, passionate about coaching and mentoring, even if they didn't know how to do it, right? Because if they don't believe in that, then everything else doesn't work. And I've made the mistake of putting the wrong manager in a role. They might have had the most product experience, but they were terrible at talking to customers and talking to people. And I'm only teaching that. Then we can all learn how to be great at that. And from an employee standpoint, if I'm a training organization, I have to hire people that are trainable. So we would have a very easy way to test for trainability. And especially in sales, wherever everybody in our organization was scripted. Now you might think that's crazy, but it was the only way we were able to replicate and scale, including the installers. So but sales reps were very, very scripted. So if we want trainable sales reps, what we would do is we would send them a 2-sentence script that they would have to memorize for their job interview. And when they would come in, they would have to recite the script. If they didn't ever try to memorize the 2-sentence script, then it was an easy one. It was like, hi, my name is Brian. I'm here for our afternoon appointment. Is there a place near the kitchen table that we can set up for our design meeting? It wasn't complicated. If they didn't put effort into memorizing that 2-sentence script, what is the likelihood they're going to memorize a full sales model? So it was the concept. We came up with the acronym of hiring to ether, and ether stands for ethical, trainable, hungry, energetic, and reliable. And those were the 5 components that we would hire to. And
that's really good.
The whole organization.
I might have to borrow that little acronym from you. I really like that one. That was. Whenever I was looking for salespeople, I was always after hungry, humble, and smart. And I kind of felt like that humble kind of brought in some of that. But man, I love that. Ether is great.
Jim, I got to give you one more. I want to rewind to culture for a minute.
Sure.
We
absolutely.
all think we have a certain culture. And what happens is, as an organization starts to grow, what happens is the leader actually gets further and further and further away from the team and away from the customer. And we think our culture is one way, but we don't know. And there's a very easy way to inspect your culture. And it's essentially, rather than doing an exit interview, after people quit, you ask them a whole bunch of questions because that's like an autopsy. The patient died. Now I want to know why. You do a stay interview. You instead do a stay interview. It's 4 questions. And the first question is, what makes you want to come to work every day? The second question is, what would one day make you want to quit? The third question is, what is one thing the company is doing wrong today? And the fourth question is, what is one thing you need from your manager that you're not getting? By completing a stay interview, that really tells you how are the people inside of your business truly thinking. But more importantly, it also knows that they now have a voice in your business, which again, feeds culture. So a stay interview is a real powerful tool.
Ding, ding, ding. Another golden nugget. Like I said, I love to interview people because I get to learn stuff. Like that's being selfish. I want to learn. That's something new. I've never heard before. I learned from you. I want to thank you for that today. That was really, really good. Brian, I feel like I could talk to you like for eons. I'd love to sit on the back porch with you and just talk about life and business and impact and all that forever. But I know you're on time, so am I, and I really appreciate you taking the time today, especially out of your schedule. I got one last question for you.
Please.
You're moving forward now in life. What do you see or what do you hope to impact with either your book or something else that you might be chasing in your life today?
Yeah, I'm very pleased with the book, and I'm working on my next book, by the way. So I've already started it. So
liked it so much. All right, great.
Yeah, and I'm very fortunate that I get to mentor a lot of people. I'm not a consultant. I don't charge for anything, but I'll always take somebody's phone call. And look, I just want to continue to say I wake up every day and say, how do I make a positive impact in this world? And then I get to decide what that looks like. And I'm very fortunate that I don't have to chase the dollar anymore. It's very freeing, so I don't have to. It's interesting when you don't have to make money, you can make a lot of different decisions in life. So, and again, it's just about making an impact. And I speak at conferences, and I love this industry because it doesn't matter what kind of car people drive. It doesn't matter about their education level. They can have the career of their dreams if they have the right attitude and if they have the right coaches along the way, the right mentors. There are a lot of false prophets out there, as you know, Jim, okay? And there are a lot of false prophets out there. So if you can be a solid mentor to somebody, I get to put my head on the pillow at night and say it was a good day. And that's why I appreciate you, by the way.
You were decent. Can I keep you for just a minute more?
Sure.
Okay. That word is still like I can't stop thinking about that word because it's almost counterculture. It's decent. That doesn't have the ring of excellence or high performance or superhero. Like you always hear kind of that vibe in our world, and it doesn't matter what business you're in, or even if you're in a business, it's almost the expectation out of us. And I call that the extreme, right? Like there's this extreme expectation that's on us, and we're constantly trying to live towards it. And sometimes we can get really obsessive about it. And we talk about this in Being a Prosperous Human. And that obsessiveness, while can lead to a lot of success, we sacrifice a lot of things along the way, and we get to success when we don't have anybody to share it with. Our health is bad, all these other things that happen.
Right.
And then on the other side of the spectrum of that is you have apathy, boredom, there's no drive, like there's all these things. And the whole goal of Prosperous Human is to help people live within this sweet spot. Not too far over there, not too far over here, but not neutral either. Neutral is a place of no growth. This place of healthy tension where you're pushing just a little and being decent.
It's approachable. It's approachable. We got to be the biggest company. We got to be number one. I got to be the top sales. We got to be. I love all that stuff. Okay, and compete wherever you feel like competing. Okay, that's great. But ultimately, it's about being decent. It's about being decent. It's about being decent in life. It's about being decent to people that you just meet for the first time. It's about being decent to a stranger. It's about having a decent business. It's about again, it's available to all of us. There's no ice baths required to be decent. Okay, there's no education required to be decent. It's merely just and I think when we're there, it's very soothing and peaceful and rewarding. It might not be popular. It's rewarding.
Yeah, it's funny. The people that aren't chasing popularity, recognition, achievement, all those things, and just trying to be decent to others, be a good human, that tends to be the people that others are attracted to more than the people that are actually chasing those things, right? You end up with those things and you're like, what the heck, where is everybody? And you realize that the guy that was just being decent has got everybody around him. Man, what an amazing conversation. I already know the title of this particular podcast, Be Decent. And I think we're going to build off of that with how we share this out there. Brian, thank you so much for being on today. I got a million other questions I'd love to ask you. Maybe we'll get you on in the future. You mentioned mentoring a little bit, and I've been asked to do some of this, and it's not what I normally do. We do one-on-one coaching is kind of what we do in our world. And so what I've done is I've reached out and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing. Grab a group of guys and come in and just get some advice. Get that advice that you need. And I know why you shy away from it as a consultant or business or that type of thing, probably because it's the repetitive aspect of things. Would you be open to maybe attending one of those and just being a special guest?
I'd love to. Anytime. I'm available for you, my friend. Anytime I can make a difference. That's great.
You are absolute rock star.
Again, I so appreciate everything you do. I know that you come from a place of caring and a place of really trying to help a company. You're not coming from a place of revenue. You're coming from a place of decency, and that's what's so cool. So anything I can do to help support you, I'm all in.
Brian, that's the best compliment I've ever received. If you knew what our core values were, you would get it. They are to love, serve, and care. And so for you to see that in us, I really appreciate that. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, my friend. Appreciate it. Beyond the Hammer. It's available on Amazon.
Go get the book. We're going to put it in the show notes. We'll put links to it and all that other good stuff. We're going to send all that to you as well, Brian, so you have it. And just really, truthfully, I appreciate you for being a decent human being.
Thanks for having me, my friend.
All right. We'll see you on. Hopefully, get you back on the show here at some point in the future. See what kind of progress you've made. I want to see this new book.
Me too.
Sounds like me writing a book. Hey, thanks, Brian. We'll talk to you later. All right, everybody. That's probably top 10 show. That was awesome. Maybe top 5 or 3. What a good human being. Did it right. And I think that's maybe a little bit of what to take out from this is you don't have to go all the crazy and be in the extremes. And like you said, compete where you want to compete. Competition's fine. But this place of where it gets out of control and you start feeling run down, beat up, and things are missing in your life, That's the place to start being cautious and start asking questions. If you're asking questions about things in your life and not feeling fulfilled, feeling like there might be gaps or something's off, that's what Prosperous Human's all about. Go and check us out more on our podcast. Feel free to go and find us out there on Substack. That's where I do a lot of writing. The transcript from this will be out there as well, so you'll see some of Brian's content in there. And it's just where I enjoy sharing some of the experience that I've gained, the experience others share with us, with you guys out there, so that you can live prosperously. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you on the next episode of Prosperous Human.